Welcome to episode 18 of Justice for All's podcast called Connections with Coffee. I have Donald. It's Jackson, isn't it?
Yes.
It is Jackson. It's not a very common name for this area. It's not a Van Jackson or a D Jackson or just Jackson. Just Jackson, right. I probably should let you know who I am. I'm Joel DeWitt, Executive Director at Justice for All. Like I said, I have Donald Jackson here with me. He is with Kingdom Boundaries Ministry. We're going to go over a little bit what Kingdom Boundaries is, where they're located. We'll touch on, some things on how you got connected to that ministry, and a little bit on how the relationship between Justice for All Ministry and Kingdom Boundaries kind of has worked together a little bit. I guess typically how it goes in the podcast, and when I have folks on, is just it's an informal interview, and we kind of get to know the guest a little bit. So wherever you'd like to start, maybe not wherever, but we'll start with
long time ago, 1986.
86. Well, I'm older than you, that's at least we're starting there. No, maybe where you grew up a little bit, how you got into ministry or connected to ministry, because you work for Kingdom Boundaries, so that's great. And then, I want to talk about what Kingdom Boundaries does and prison aftercare and that sort of thing, and then also, what the relationship is like, and I'll throw questions out there a little bit too as we kind of go. So
sounds good.
So, there's some direction.
So let's start with Kingdom Boundaries. Kingdom Boundaries is a Christ-centered nonprofit, halfway house located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Our goal is to lower the recidivism rate. That's a big word I have a hard time pronouncing. And what that word means is
I was going to ask that question. What does that even mean?
That men go back to prison after being released.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is to mitigate that problem.
So Kingdom Boundaries works with folks who are leaving prison, prison.
Correct.
They've been institutionalized for a varying degree of it doesn't matter how they got there.
Exactly.
But they're in prison, they get released, they come to Kingdom Boundaries. That's however they got connected. How do they get connected?
So we have a Bible study at Mike Durfee State Penitentiary in Springfield.
Okay.
And the way you get connected is you attend that Bible study, you get to know the guy leading the Bible study, he interviews you, he finds out if your desire is to follow Christ and you're looking for that pathway or you're hungry for that pathway, and then that starts the process of filling out paperwork, and that's the connection point.
Sure.
We try to base our connection on a desire to serve Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right. That can be tricky to measure.
It is. And because the way we're attacking the recidivism rate is by fostering a relationship with Jesus Christ. We are a donor-funded organization because we don't accept government money, because two of our requirements are you have to attend a weekly Bible study and a weekly church service.
The government's not going to allow that.
And they don't allow that.
No.
But that's the basis. That's what we have. That's what we have found works. And I say we, not just as an employee, but as somebody who in December of 2020 got out of Mike Durfee State Penitentiary, went to Kingdom Boundaries for my 6 to 10 week program, and now in 2020, this is 5, so 2024 February, I started there as their employee.
Okay, so you've been there for a year as an employee.
Yep.
6 to 10. So when you got out in 2020, whenever that was,
December
of 2020. Why was it only 6 to 10 weeks? Or what's that process?
That's the minimal. They ask you to sign a contract saying you will, and I can't remember right now if it was a 6 or a 10 week, but they ask you to sign a contract saying you'll stay that long. But the length that you stay there is based on your need, your growth.
Okay.
The idea is not to fast track anybody. We've had guys.
I was thinking, couldn't it be longer than that? Is what my thought was.
Oh, yes,
it seems like 6 to 10 seems short.
It is very short.
Okay.
There's very few that are only there 6 weeks. We've had guys a year, 2 years. What's your need? How quick can you make the adjustments, get the job, get the bills in order, learn the skills you need to learn, and it's what is necessary.
Yeah. So what kind of residence is it then that you went to? Is it
We have one residence right now. So the way our program is set up is that everybody comes out of the pen and they go to the first house.
Yep.
And that is the master's house.
Okay.
I think. No, that's the carpenter's shop. I should have known this before I showed up. But we have 3 different names for our building, 3 buildings on there.
So are there but there's levels.
There's levels.
Okay.
The first level is you're in an apartment that's been renovated so that there's 3 guys living in it. You have no privacy, but there's 3 of you in there.
When you were in the pen
exactly.
Anyway,
it's still better than the pen.
Yeah.
And you work up until you get a job. You stay there till you get a job, get so much of your bill paid off, and prove that you're being successful. Then you move across the 4-foot yard to the master's house, which is a 6-plex apartment building.
Okay. And
now that is just you and one other roommate. You don't have a camera on you 24 hours a day where you did the first one.
Okay.
It's a 2-bedroom apartment that you share, but you still have your curfews, when you can leave, when you have to be back, and all of that. And then you stay there the time necessary. The idea is you fully pay off your bill to Kingdom Boundaries, and then you save up 1 or 2 months rent plus a security deposit.
Okay.
And then start looking for an apartment.
Huh.
And that's where our program would get bottlenecked.
Sure.
Is because for felons, it's really difficult to find housing.
Yeah. Well, and you only have 12 spots available.
Right.
In that place.
Exactly. So that would bottleneck us, and that was a big problem for years because we have guys that desire the Kingdom Boundary program so much, they choose to stay in prison until we have a bed open up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've heard up to 6 months, guys that stayed 6 months extra because they did not want to go to the other halfway houses because they know what the atmosphere is there.
Sure.
They want the Christ-centered atmosphere. That is why I believe that
says something.
It does. It says something about our program and what we have. It's not just a program. We build a family.
Yeah.
And I will say that as, like I said, a former resident. It's you look at the other guys as your brothers.
Sure.
You look at the staff members. Some of us you'd maybe call them uncles. Some of them you might call mom and dad. That's just depending on how close you get to them. But they're family members. They're right there beside you.
Sure. Well, and I think. You have having gone through, like I've never had a family member go to prison for an extended amount of time. They've been whatever in and out of jail. I know some folks, but you got to have a support system of some variety. If you're trying to make drastic changes in your life, right? You're trying to leave something that's pretty crappy behind.
Yep.
And make drastic changes. You need support to be able to do that.
You do. You have to.
And golly, I would, you would have, to me, it can only be successful in having support doing that. And I think that's, trying to set that up makes so much sense.
I would say, my personal opinion is the number one, there's two keys to success. Number one is a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Number 2 is a community.
Yeah.
Without those 2, you can't make those changes.
I don't know how you would do it.
You have to be willing to use your community.
Yep.
One of the things I see guys come through,
and
we have that community,
but
they don't reach out. We find out when the cops are knocking on the door that they had been struggling for 6 months.
Right.
Well, we can't help you if you don't come to us.
That's tough, man.
It is.
That's because you look about the pride it takes to put that aside and be like, hey, I need this sort of help. Like that's hard enough. Like it's hard in a marriage. To put that aside and be like, I'm not doing well with whatever it is. Like I can see where that's tricky.
And it's little things that we as men especially don't think about. And one of my favorite stories to share to prove this point is right after I got out of prison, I went grocery shopping at Walmart. And it was so overwhelming because you get this and it's an irrational fear. But all of us guys seem to get it, and that is that you're walking around with a sign over your head that says, hi, my name is Donald, I'm an ex-inmate, and this is what I went to prison for. So when you're walking through Walmart, you feel like everybody's staring at you, everybody's judging you. And I remember my first trip to Walmart, my good friend stayed in the car, he had some phone calls to make. And I got in there and I got completely overwhelmed. Did not buy everything on my list. Did not get everything. Finally, I just beat feet for the cash register and got out of there.
Yeah.
And a few days or a few weeks later, he took me back and then he walked with me. Yeah. And we literally just started at the front of the store and walked up and down the aisles. And you want to talk about feeling like a child. And, I would have been, 28 years old, 29 years old, somewhere right in there. No, I would have been older than that. I'd been in my 30s. you feel like a child having your friend lead you up and down the aisles. But that's what community does.
Yeah.
It realizes, okay, you're overwhelmed in here. Now I'm going to go with you. Yeah. And he just kept reminding me, hey, they don't know who you are.
They don't.
There's no one here that knows your past. Don't worry about it. No. Relax.
Right.
Stop. Look at something.
Instead of listening to the voices in your head telling you that they all know, then at least you have an external voice saying, hey, man, it's all right. It's all right. I'm here with you. It's just two people just walking down the aisle looking for some groceries.
Yeah. And you know, so there's simple things.
Yeah, it diffuses a lot of that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. So that we got a little bit about, you know, some of the things. So like, you know, the place where they go to and having to get to when they're right out of the pen. There's how many people are in that place?
We're right at 20. Okay,
so you can fit more or less, or are there certain qualifications? Or
no, it's just as we have beds available, and if you answer the questions correctly, so it shows that you really want our program.
Right. Okay.
We don't want everybody coming through, because if you don't have any desire to go to church and you don't have any desire to live a Christian life, you're not going to like our rules.
Oh, it's going to be and
you're not going to be successul. You're going to make us look bad.
Yep.
We're looking for those that this is what they want. Okay, now let us help you.
Yeah. Yep. So you got 20 beds available there, and then they move into living with a roommate where there's a little less oversight.
That accounts our the whole both buildings is we're a small program, so both buildings combined is about 20 beds.
Okay.
And then we have a third house that is, we call it the Holy Spirit Inn. It was bought after the first two, and that's just a house that we can put, I think, 4 guys in.
Okay.
And that's more long term. That's a step outside of the apartments that, hey, I like the way, I need the financial structure that you have here.
Okay.
So here's another option for you. It's connected. Okay. The properties are all 3 connected, where there's the first building and a driveway, the second building and a driveway, and they all share a back parking lot. Okay. So it just made sense as they came up to buy the 3.
Okay.
And so the Holy Spirit Inn is really just a long-term rental.
Okay.
And guys stay there as long as they want.
Interesting.
Yep. It's a sober living environment. And so, as I had said earlier, that we were bottlenecked with the apartments.
Yeah. Yep.
So about 3 years ago, they bought 2 apartment buildings across town. They were a 6-plex and a 12-plex. They were run down, drugs, bugs, creepy colors of all kinds, and just they were known to be trap houses. And literally one of the apartments had a walk-up window where you'd walk up and buy your drugs and walk on down past the side of the building. We've had numerous guys come through our program since we've bought these and say, oh, I used to sit there and get high. I used to buy from this guy. Yeah. You know, they know these buildings as for what they were.
Yeah.
Well, we've bought them. We're remodeling them. And that is we're running them as an apartment complex. You're forced to have a roommate.
Sure.
Because of space. But the idea there is then you can move from the program to these apartments. If you're in the program and doing well, you're guaranteed a spot if you want it.
Okay.
And then you can take a year or 2 or 3 to look around the community, maybe buy a house or find that rare landlord that has nice places that will accept you.
Yeah.
And get that next nice place in the right neighborhood so you can continue to build the Christian community and get deeper in your walk with Jesus Christ.
So I would suppose finding a place, if you're a felon, going to be kind of tricky. So are those apartment complexes somewhat independent from Kingdom Boundaries in that sense? Like, are there guidelines in that aspect of it too, like there are in those other places?
We do. We run a sober living. You sign a contract.
Okay, all right.
You sign a contract that we don't have any alcohol on the premises.
Yeah.
And no drug use.
Okay.
You're not going to be, we expect you say you're going to obey the laws of the land.
Yeah.
Basic, clean living stuff.
Sure.
We don't have curfews. We do ask that you don't have visitors over after 10 o'clock because most of the time if people are coming and going after 10 o'clock, it's not for good reasons.
More than likely not.
And that's just what we're trying to avoid.
Let's just be of it. Like, what I appreciate is some authenticity in that, right? Like, hey, we know when things have happened. We have experience when things have happened. Y'all know when this happened.
Yep.
So let's just be upfront about it. Hey, this is something that we are going to try to not allow.
Exactly.
It's not good for any of us.
Yep.
Let's keep it between the hours when things are appropriate.
One thing that we get the most kickback from is we don't allow, we have a strict no female visitors with our men after 10 p.m.
All right.
No, your girlfriend is not spending the night at our house.
I think that's appropriate.
I agree. I remember when I was dating my wife. there was times where it was like, it'd be easier just for her to crash, for me to crash on the couch and her to stay here. But as the landlord, I had to set the example.
You definitely got to be that example, for sure, for sure. Well, all right. So we got a little bit about it. How did you get connected? Like, I know you mentioned you were in, I'll leave it up to you a little bit on how far back you want to go, or, we got time.
Okay. I'll just go back and I'll just share my testimony and I'll brief it. And if there's more details you want to fill in once I'm done, we can back up and fill some details in. So, born and raised Central Pennsylvania. That's a little bit of ways from.
What does Central Pennsylvania look like?
Hills.
Is that it? Just hills and trees?
Hills and trees and too many people. We have a little bit of farming, but see, our fields aren't flat. Our fields are on angles.
Okay.
They're sideways.
What city? What's the biggest city near there?
So if you draw a line between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and cut it in half, that's about where I grew up. There's a town there called Altoona. I've
heard of it.
Yep. That's kind of the area I grew up in.
All right.
I was, if you're familiar, I could go down to smaller towns, but that's basically.
I'm just trying to get a mental picture of where this is at. So
that's where it's at.
Okay.
I would say South Central Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And church all my life, Christian family, 3 services a week plus a Christian education. So more church with school.
Hey, all right.
I've told people, I said, the only way to get more church than I've had in my life is to be an evangelist son and travel everywhere with your dad.
Was your dad a pastor?
No.
Okay.
My dad was just a parishioner. But between church and school and chasing girls and going to their churches on special occasions, and my folks had the belief that if the church doors were open and you weren't throwing up, you were there.
Okay.
All right. We were there. That church was that important to us growing up.
That's how you got saved.
No,
I know. I know.
I hear people since I've been out of prison and into ministry. I've had people say, "Well, you had it so nice. You grew up in church. You know all this." I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's not all roses like you think it is." But at the age of 12, I knew I had a call to preach.
12. That's 20 plus years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the age of 12, I looked at the Lord and said, "You're nuts." Mm-hmm. And that was basically my opinion. I'd go through phases where, okay, Lord, I'll serve you, I'll do what's right. And then he'd bring up that call to preach, and I'd be like, yeah, not so much. That's not for me. You haven't forgot that yet. I'll come back later. Maybe you'll forget it later. And I basically lived that way, on and off, thinking about serving the Lord, trying to serve the Lord, more only just to appease my conscience. I wanted to feel good about myself.
Sure.
Got married, had a wife, started having a family. Got into pornography.
Oh.
That actually started when I was 9 or 10. It went away for a few years. It came back. And pornography is what led me down the road and led me to the crimes that I committed.
Oh. So you were, I guess I'm thinking you'd mentioned earlier you were born in 86. Like, this was like before internet really was as accessible as it is.
It was all my porn came across the internet.
Okay.
I grew up with a computer. We always had the tech in our house.
Okay.
And it was ready then. Wasn't so anyway. As a child it wasn't as accessible.
Okay.
But my brother and I still figured out how to get it off the computer.
Gotcha.
And as an adult, that was the easy way. As an adult,
sure,
it's at your fingertips.
There's a lot of stuff on there for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
And that led down a pathway of me saying no to God. And the more I said no to God, the deeper I went into pornography. And that's when the crimes started happening. And it would have been October of 2016 that my child told my wife what I was doing. And I was confronted. Man. First tried to deny. That lasted a whole half an hour because my ex-wife could read me like an open book, which looking back was a great thing. And decision was made, turned myself into law enforcement. Before they even started an investigation, let's just get it done with. I open the investigation, face the music, so we can get this behind us.
Were you out there or out here?
I was in South Dakota.
Okay.
And that is how I got to prison. and it was sitting in a county jail cell. I was handed a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper was somewhere between 7 and 10 crimes that they were taken to the grand jury to try to prove that I did these 7 to 10 things.
Yeah.
2 of them carried a life sentence, a max of a life sentence. And that was the day that I sat back and looked at that piece of paper and I said, I ain't got a life left. What's left for me? Men with my crime go to prison and get beat up and used. And it doesn't look like I'm ever getting out of here. And I had a mental conversation with myself. Am I going to commit suicide, or am I going to actually just die out to Christ and see what he's got left for me?
That's heavy, man.
That's very heavy.
Jeepers.
That's about as low as I know that you can get.
Uh-huh.
And I thank the Lord I chose him.
Uh-huh. Same.
That was the day I said, okay, Lord, if there's anything left of me you can use.
Golly.
Here it is. It's yours. I don't know what the future holds. It's yours.
All right.
Fast forward a year, I enter Mike Durfee State Penitentiary, Springfield, South Dakota. And
so did you, if you don't mind me backing up just real quick a sec. So like if you looked at those things, right, and it's life in prison for a couple of them and whatever, like, you know, you're making that, like, did you have to plea out of those then to some extent, or like
they went to the grand jury. The grand jury rolled those 2 out right away. They said no, that the evidence is not here for this.
Okay.
My lawyer came to me and said, "Hey, what are you willing to do?" I said, "This is what I did. Our plea to two counts of this particular charge." And my lawyer said, "Okay, I'll take that to him." And so that's what I ended up getting.
Okay. All right.
Sentenced to 15 years each.
Oh.
So initially it's like, okay, that's 30 years. But
right.
The judge said, okay, we'll run them concurrent, which means you serve them both at the same time.
Yep. In
the state of South Dakota at that time, the rule was first-time offender, you did 50% of your charge, and then you get parole.
So you're at 7.5 years.
Correct. But then the judge did what they call suspended sentence. So he dropped 5 of the 15.
Oh.
So now it's a 10-year sentence.
So now you're out on 5.
So now I'm out in 5. So now I went from a day of, I've got a life of misery,
literally your entire life
in prison, to, okay, 5 years. This is doable. And then while I was in prison, they enacted what they called an earned discharge credit program. And that is earned discharge credit program. And what that was if you were doing education and work.
Yeah.
For ever so many hours you worked, they gave you time off your sentence.
Okay.
And I got it down to where I served just shy of 4 years. Just shy of 4 years.
What did you do for work?
I worked for the South Dakota Housing Program, and I took their electrical apprenticeship program.
Okay.
So with being an electrician, apprentice, taking the classes, learning to be an electrician, I maxed out the EDC program. Everything. I was receiving the max.
You couldn't do any more.
Couldn't do any more. I actually worked more hours than they could give me credit for.
I see.
So yeah, that's what I did. I was 2 years into a 4-year course when I got out.
Did you finish it?
Nope. The Lord shut the doors.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't hear you're not an electrician now.
Nope. My intention was to get out, get a job as an electrician, build a business.
Yeah.
Once the business was built, go in to become a traveling evangelist and use my business to help small churches.
All right.
I got out of prison. I tried to pursue that, and the Lord said, close door, close door, close door.
All right. Well.
So finally one day I stopped looking for work as an electrician and said, okay, Lord, where do you want me to go? The next day I get a call from a landlord in another city that says, hey, I want to give you a second chance. Come work for us.
Oh, well. Maybe that's that, man. I don't know. That is, I don't know. I don't even have the words. Like, I don't. It's like those stories and those things are just, it's so amazing.
It is.
It's so just, I don't know. Amazing is all I can come up with, but
it's like proof that we as human beings, especially Christians, need to shut up and listen.
Dude.
Step back and say, Lord, what's your choice?
What I think, I go over this with my wife and my kids more often. Like, you think you have control over stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't, like, the more things go along, I don't know that I have control over hardly anything.
No.
Like, not like I have control over my reaction to what happens.
Yep.
But like that's about it. Like the things that happen in this world and the way things go, I don't know that I hardly have any. I'd love to control it, but I don't.
Nope, we don't. We don't have control.
It's just being available to listening to what the Spirit moves, and am I gonna listen to that? Like, am I gonna pick up the phone and make a phone call, or am I going to be available to the nudgings and the way that I feel like I'm being led? Am I available to that, or am I going to react in anger? Like, just it's the way that things happen and how I react to it versus what I'm trying to control someone else to do.
Exactly.
God, you get a phone call after that day. That's just something else, man. So, all right. So you get a phone call from pick it up a little bit from there and how you got to unless. Well, was your friend someone who worked at Kingdom Boundaries then?
No.
Because on the timeline, I'm not sure it's quite jiving because it was incarcerated in 16, 17?
Got out in 20. Okay. 2020.
Yeah.
So it's like 3.5 or 4 years. I'd have to sit down and do the math again. I had a job doing temp work from real short order after getting out.
Uh-huh.
While I was at Kingdom Boundaries, was looking for this job as an electrician.
Sure.
Wasn't finding one. Kept that job basically the whole time I lived at Kingdom Boundaries.
Okay.
And got an apartment in town. Like I said, I'd kind of quit looking for a job. I said, fine, Lord, I went so far as to apply for the company I was doing temp work for, applied for the exact position I did every day, and got told I was not qualified for the position. That was the day that I said, okay, Lord, enough. What's going on?
It's like, what?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Which not qualified for a position when you're a felon is the legal way of saying you're a felon, we're not hiring you.
We're not hiring you because we can hire the temp person because they're just a temp person and they're not a real employee. We're just paying a temp, right? We can let them go whenever.
Yeah, exactly. So,
dang.
And like I said, then I get a call. This was my former boss, the company I had been working for when I did my crime and went to prison.
Uh-huh.
I had been trying to reach out to him for a completely different situation. And then one day he calls me and he says, hey, there's a guy in town wants to know if you need a job, and if you'd like to work for him. I had heard the guy's name, didn't know anything about him. I said, sure, give him my information.
Mm-hmm.
Process started from that phone call till I got hired was about a week.
That's not too far.
And they are the largest or the second largest landlord in that city.
Where was this at?
Mitchell, South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
And Mid-Dakota Properties took me on despite my past.
Okay.
They gave me the skill set I have today to be a maintenance man.
Gotcha.
I knew the basics for putting siding on, and
Sure.
I could install windows, but I didn't know anything about plumbing. I didn't know anything about a lot of that stuff. I worked there, got the skill set I have today, and then while I was working there was when Kingdom Boundaries bought the apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
They started the renovation process, and when it was getting close to being open, like, hey, we're going to need a maintenance guy. We're going to need a landlord, someone to manage these buildings.
Yep.
They reached out to me and said, are you interested? And I said yes.
That seemed like hand in glove right there.
Yeah.
It was like, just, yes.
Yes.
I can do that.
I was a big voice for their ministry. Even though I was no longer there, I'd travel with them to churches and give my testimony.
Yeah.
And anybody that would give me 13 seconds, I would take 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm beginning to find that out.
Exactly. See?
Yep. All right. So my mind went back to something else, and this is going to go back to
That's good.
earlier. Because you had mentioned paying down to Kingdom Boundaries. So like when you're living there, there's rent of some variety.
Yes.
There's like a pay it off over time, pay it in the end, or what is that? I mean,
So-
I know you mentioned that they do fundraising for and no government dollars and those sort of things and all that's great, but there is some culpability of the person to not just go to church and go to Bible studies and say you want to be whatever. There's some skin also.
Yes. So when you show up at Kingdom Boundaries, when you walk through the front door, you're greeted by staff with a smile. They show you to your room, and at the foot of your bed is a laundry basket. And in that laundry basket is sheets, pillows, laundry soap, personal hygiene stuff,
Sure.
and a roll of quarters so you can do laundry. Because at that time, they had quarter machines.
Something in the basement probably.
Yes,
Go do
exactly.
It. Sure. Yep.
So everything you needed day to day. Because when you leave the penitentiary, you have a $50 check in your pocket.
That's it?
Yes. Unless you have managed to save up more than that from your minimum income you can make in there. Yeah. If you don't have somebody on the outside helping you, sure. You walk out of there with $50, a pair of scrub-looking pants that are not going to fit you, and a shirt that barely fits you.
And they're like, good luck.
So when you walk into KB, they have all of this stuff. They show you your room, and they say, are you ready to get rid of those clothes? And then 98% of us say yes. We walk into the basement of the building, and there's a room full of clothes. Mm-hmm. They allow you to pick out 3 outfits.
Okay.
Now, all of this stuff has a small price tag.
Sure.
So day one, you walk in there in debt. And then the other thing they do is they hand you a phone, a prepaid phone.
Okay.
With the first month card on it. All of that is a bill to you. But there's no pressure on paying that. The idea is, we know you have to have this stuff for success.
Yeah.
So here it is. Now, we're not going to just give it to you for you to squander. Mm-hmm. We're gonna encourage you and teach you how to pay us back. Which, for me, made me appreciate everything that I had. I had to work for it. It wasn't just given to me. And to me, that meant something. Maybe not to everybody.
Sure.
But that's what I mean. So, and then there is a monthly rent charge. It's one price when you're in the first building. Mm-hmm. Then when you move over to the second building, then you have your rent plus you pay your half of the electric bill for the apartment.
Yep.
And you have to buy your own groceries. Yep. They won't let you go hungry, but from day one you have to do what you have to do to get groceries.
Yeah.
No one ever goes hungry.
But that's what's going to have to happen when you're on your own.
Exactly.
Right. So if you've been in the institution and you've had everything from what you're wearing, you don't have to decide that. Nope. What you're eating, don't have to decide that. Nope. Where you're sleeping, don't have to decide that.
Nope.
It's just the same stuff every day. Like, you don't have to do any of that.
No.
So I would say almost to untrain that, you can't just go from all of the institution to nothing, sort of in reference to your Walmart shopping excursion earlier. Like, that's just like, you can't just expect someone to be like, oh, now I have all this stuff. Like, you need to get someone understanding of how these things are accumulated and what the cost of those things are. Yep. That's pretty neat.
And that training goes all the way down to, can you keep a checkbook? Can you keep a register of your bank account?
Yeah.
Do you know how to fill out a budget?
Sometimes I wonder if I can keep a register of a bank account, man. Golly.
Exactly.
Like, some of this stuff just is not, this ain't the easiest stuff to figure out in life sometimes.
No, and then you put all that stress of, now I'm changing my whole life.
And just the past of whatever I'm going away from and what I dealt with is back there. So I got to overcome not only that, but I got to figure out, what am I going to eat today? Mm-hmm. What am I going to wear today? Mm-hmm. What am I going to do this today? And I'll worry about tomorrow. Like, I guess in my opinion, like, having success in life, it certainly is trusting that the Lord is going to provide for you.
Yes.
And in all things. But to have the ability to know, listen, I believe that the Lord is leading me to be a preacher or whatever this is. 5 years from now, what can I do now to see myself doing those things in 5 years? And if the doors keep closing, well, then I'll just move on to whatever that is. But, like, you got to be able to see past what is the rest. I just got to get through today, and I'll worry about tomorrow. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be some of the balancing of knowing that there's going to be a tomorrow and planning for it versus just whatever I got to do to get through today.
If you don't plan for tomorrow today, tomorrow's going to be chaos.
I think so. Right?
Because you want today to flow into tomorrow, to flow into next week, like, to flow into next year.
Like, hey, okay, like, if I can do this and I can do this, like, just let them build on each other a little bit more. Like, hey, the Lord provided for me to get through this and to get through this, and if I can just continue into this path, like, there might be curves along the path. Like, okay, well, we were going to be doing an electrician, but that ain't working. And there's, and my story has things like that too, where it's like, I thought I was going to be doing this, and the Lord's like, I don't think so, buddy. Like, that's just how that goes in life.
Exactly.
And whether you're willing to admit that that's the Lord doing that work, or poor me, and now I get all these things dumped on me, like, how someone reacts to that, it can be their own personal decision. But
exactly.
But I think that's interesting, and that was one of the things that I wanted to, I guess, jump back to was how does the person who's going through the program at Kingdom Boundaries have some culpability.
And they work on other things like, what's your 5-year goal?
Yeah.
They help you to look at your goals.
Yeah.
Because, like I just said, if we just live today, tomorrow's going to be chaos. And if you're just living for today, you can't plan for success tomorrow. And it's tomorrow is when the enemy's going to jump on your shoulder and say, what about, and bring up your past.
Oh, yeah.
Bring up that old desire.
Yeah.
So today, while you're strong, you have to be putting plans in order, so when you're weak, you already have that.
Yes, that's the idea. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So we have to, and there's guys you got to train to think that way. They've never looked outside of where's the next needle coming from.
Yeah.
You know, what's the next thing's going to make me feel good? Where's the next drink? So now we got to, and they work with guys on a need-to-need base, case-by-case basis.
Sure.
What thought process do we need to change?
Mm-hmm.
And they base it all on that firm foundation of this is the Bible, this is the inerrant Word of God. We're going to structure our life off of it.
Yeah.
And being accountable, going to church, going to Bible study, proving that, keeping your finances in order, that's your skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the appeals to the Kingdom Boundaries program is our rules are actually a lot looser on your freedom of going out and doing things than a lot of the state-run programs. If you want enough rope to hang yourself, then go to Kingdom Boundaries.
Right.
And what I mean by that is you have enough freedom there to come out and make the bad choices to get yourself sent right back. Mm-hmm. Which to me is a good thing, because then you're making it because you're choosing to make it.
Right. It's not there aren't things in place that are like, well, it's a fail safe. Like I only can do it this way, but it's the
correct.
You have the ability to fail, but you're choosing to be successful.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I love hearing this sort of stuff, because these are the type of programs that, I'm glad that as a ministry we're supporting you.
Yes. And
in a way that we can just provide as apartment comp. I mean, we have functional furniture type things that come in all the time. Yep. And clothing and just, things like that our volunteers sort through. So anything that you all want, I don't know if you want to maybe touch on it. There's a new women's part of this deal too.
Yes.
I don't know, just maybe touch on that just a little bit.
So what I can tell you about that is, for years, there's been a need for women coming out of prison. There just wasn't anything available.
Where's the state? Is there only one state
There's
prison?
One prison in Pierre. Okay. And for now, it's in Pierre. They're opening a new one in Rapid.
Okay.
That's being built, as far as I know right now. But House of Grace.
Okay.
That's the name of it.
Built on the same sort of concept, I am guessing.
Yes, exact same concept, except for obviously molded to fit
women. Yeah.
And so as we're opening that, of course, we're needing furniture, they're needing household goods, they're needing clothing, because again, when the women come out, they ain't going to want to wear them clothes for 2 or 3 days. They're going to want something to change into. And as with me, I'd rather change into something and then go downtown and buy
something you want.
Stuff I want.
Yeah.
Anything to get the prison clothes off.
I would want to burn them things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so our partnership with JFA has been one with the apartment complex and with the House of Grace. By the way, we call the apartment complex Kingdom Apartments.
Kingdom Apartments.
Nice. So with those two ministries, we've got a lot of furniture. And we get a lot of dishes and pots and pans and curtains, and because when guys come into our apartments, they are a fully furnished, down to all you got to do is go grocery shopping.
Okay.
Then you can come home and cook a 4-course meal. Yeah. Unless you need some weird something that we just don't have.
Right.
But that's how we provide for them. That way it's as stress free as can be.
Yeah,
and then they're not having to come up with all this money for that stuff right away.
There's some capital that it would take to fulfill a kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've given you that load off so you can continue working, saving, and looking for that next permanent home.
Yeah.
I have guys that are going to be permanent. I know they are, which is great because you need that. They can hopefully come beside the guys that rotate in and out.
Yeah. You're talking about in Kingdom Apartments, they're going to be there for the duration.
Yep.
Yeah.
That when they leave, it'll be because they're headed home to heaven.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're going to have transition. Guys are going to come a year, 6 months, 2 years. I've had guys last 3 months, 6 months till they go find that next apartment, that next house.
Yep.
Them and their roommate get along so good, and they're like, hey, we kind of want a little more freedom.
Yep.
Because as I alluded to earlier, we have a set of roles that not everybody likes.
Yep.
And, hey, we get along. Why don't we pull our resources?
Yep.
Get a rental property from somewhere else. That's what we're here for.
You need to get it sort of figured out and then be able to go do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's cool. Well, I don't have a ton of other things. I was, this is sort of what we were looking for in just sort of what Kingdom Boundaries does and how you got connected and, a little bit about you. Certainly, I appreciate you, being willing to share some of that. And, you're talkative, and that's probably not crazy for you to share, but I'm sure it still is a thing. Like, hey, I'm willing to do it. And I don't know maybe if this is true or not, but if the more you're probably willing to talk about it, maybe the less burdensome it becomes.
To an extent, yes.
I mean, it
gets easier.
It's probably still a burden to talk about.
Oh, yes. Especially when I start talking about why I went to prison. That hurts. That's heavy.
I wouldn't doubt that at all.
I didn't go into detail. I kind of left it vague so people can use their own imagination.
You don't need to.
I have went into detail in other situations when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But I remind myself that I have a past, and our Heavenly Father is redeeming that past. And if I want you to truly grasp what the Lord is capable of, I need to first paint the picture of where I was and who I was.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember and go back to that and paint that picture of myself.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather just erase that.
That'd be
I
nice
don't
to
want
not think about it. Yeah.
But when I paint that picture of who I was, and then I paint that picture of who I am, now you know a little more of the power of the blood of Jesus Christ.
For sure.
I went from running from the Lord to considering suicide to today I'm working for a ministry, helping other guys, doing pulpit supply as churches call me and need it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I got a beautiful wife. We're starting again.
Yeah.
It's just it speaks volumes to the Lord's restorative power.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's I don't know. It's amazing, really. So I appreciate you sharing with that and being willing to have the ownership and the ability to do that and to articulate, the different levels of Kingdom Boundaries and the structure that's involved, and just knowing that, when folks bring things here, a lot of times they know it gets dropped off. Like, that's the physical resource part of it. People drop things off here all the time, and that's typically what a lot of people know about Justice for All is, that's where we bring our stuff. But I like to encourage folks to know, hey, when you bring stuff here, it goes to other places, and it goes to places that are nearby, up in Sioux Falls or in Northwest Iowa or other parts of the country too. But it's not, limited to just one particular place. There's a myriad of places, and we try to do our best with resources given to other ministries like yours that are building community in a Christ-centered way to help folks in need. And that's ultimately what we're trying to be able to do as our ministry as well. So I appreciate the time and visiting and getting to know you a little bit. Certainly blessings to you and Kingdom Boundaries as you guys continue on making a difference and being available to what God's direction is. One gentleman who comes in at a time and one woman who comes in at a time when that gets going, just to be able to, personally, I think just one person's difference is enough, right? For all of that work. So don't be discouraged if it's one person or not. Like, for me, one person is enough, and continue to take that each day moving forward and build on that. So, like I said, my name's Joel, and I'm the executive director of Justice for All. This is Donald Jackson. Do you have a title, or is it just maintenance guy, or where are we at here?
My official titles are property manager and head of maintenance.
There you go. That sounds much better than maintenance guy.
Yeah, that's maintenance guy works.
Yeah, I know. Property manager, Donald Jackson, over at Kingdom Boundaries. So if you get a chance, you want to look them up, do that on their website. We'll link. Do you guys have a Facebook site of some kind, possibly?
I don't know about Facebook, but our website is kingdomboundaries.org.
Okay, kingdomboundaries.org. Check that out. We'll tag them in there if there's a Facebook part of it, and we'll make sure that this can be shared because it's something that's worth sharing.
Yes,
so
it is.
I appreciate your time, and thank you all for listening and watching, and God bless.